Coming in at number 3 is vitamin D. And the reason it's so important to supplement with vitamin D is very similar to the reasons for magnesium. It's involved in a ton of processes within the body, and 2, you're almost certainly going to be insufficient in it. 40% of Americans have a level of less than 20, which is classified as deficient. But then 70% of Americans have a level of less than 30, which is classified as insufficient. And I believe, based on other studies, that an optimal range for vitamin D is closer to 40 or even 60. So you'd imagine that at least probably 90% of Americans are below this range and will need vitamin D supplementation to get to that optimal level. But why is it important to get to that optimal level? Well, a higher level of vitamin D is associated with much better long-term outcomes of health and performance. First of all, higher vitamin D levels are again associated with higher bone mineral density, and lower vitamin D levels are associated with higher risk for cardiovascular disease and for higher risk for metabolic syndrome. Also, vitamin D is super important for immune system regulation and for mood regulation and inhibiting depression or cognitive decline. And finally, just like magnesium, vitamin D is also very important for muscular health and strength as well. There are many forms of vitamin D, but vitamin D3 is the one that generally raises your levels the most for the general population. There are also, though, many forms of vitamin D3. The two forms to talk about here are an oil-based form, the more traditional, and 2, the liposomal form. The liposomal form does have some studies proving that it's better absorbed and can reach higher peak concentrations. However, it's 5 to 10 times more expensive. So I would stick with an oil-based traditional form because you're going to be able to get a higher dose at a lower price tag that will probably get you to the level that you need. However, if you have absorption problems, aka you have some gut issues, then a liposomal form might be better for you so that you can ensure that you're more likely absorbing it. As far as dose goes, again, ideally you would measure your vitamin D level and try to get it above 40. I even like to see it above 60. However, if this is unattainable, studies have shown that you're going to need at least 2,000 to 5,000 IUs per day to get to that optimal level. I like to generally shoot for 4,000 per day with patients initially, so I find this generally gets them above that 60 nanograms per milliliter level, and I think a lot of studies back this up. As far as timing goes, I would take your vitamin D with meals because the fat in the meals will help it be better absorbed. And as far as brands for vitamin D goes, I like to stick with Pure Encapsulations here. They have a great 4,000 IU vitamin D3 along with 100 micrograms of vitamin K2 for basically no additional cost. And that's a great amount of vitamin K2. And basically what that's going to do is inhibit calcium from going to blood vessels, and instead it's going to take that calcium to the bone. And for this vitamin D3 with K2, that's going to run you $33.60 for 120 servings.